Hello my friends, I am Zazubaar, and today I'm here to review another comic book, this time by IDW. And today indeed we are going to be talking about Godzilla, Kingdom of Monsters, Volume 1. Now, I believe they only put out 2 of these volumes so far, of the first 8 issues of Godzilla, Kingdom of Monsters. Now, in Volume 1, all we have is the first 4 issues. This series has been going on for, I believe, at least a year now, if not a little longer. I believe it's the arc, the series actually started last April, if I'm not mistaken. So it's been going on for 12 issues or maybe more by now. But this is only the first 4 issues of Kingdom of Monsters. And I gotta be honest, guys, if you watch the Q&A video I did about a month ago, I expressed my somewhat hatred for this series. I'll be the first to admit that I'm not a fan. I hadn't read all of it. I hadn't been picking it up month to month, as I said in the Q&A, but from what I read of it, I thought it was awful. I thought it was really quite terrible. But I decided that for you guys and for my own sake, that it might be good to actually review what I could pick up and trade. So I was reviewing it in order and not just reviewing the few and far between that I read. Now, I actually wish I hadn't kind of overreacted with this series as I did in that Q&A video, or been as harsh as I was on it in that Q&A video, because I said those very harsh things about it without actually reading consecutive issues. I only read a few things, few and far between, like 1, 4, 11. So, I really wish I would have held my tongue on saying how horrible I think it is, without having read things consecutively. So I decided to pick up the first trade, and test it out to see how it works consecutively. This is, again, the first 4 issues, and let's jump into it, shall we? Now, I'm also going to admit that I wasn't that wrong with my statements that I made in the Q&A, because this is not that good. Kingdom of Monsters has a couple of problems that start right in the first issue. First things first, I want to talk about the origin of Godzilla, because Godzilla shows up on the second page, I think. Let me just check. Third page. Fifth page, he shows up. And he bursts, we see him bursting out of sand. Now, what my first assumption when I first started reading this, and based on what the back says, I'll just read the back quickly. I won't read the whole thing, but just the part I want to mention. The King of the Monsters rises again, and for the first time in comics, he's bringing lots of other beloved Toho monsters with him in one destructive saga. Here's the thing. When I first read that, I figured that this book was going to go along with the same lines as the Marvel run on Godzilla did and the Dark Horse run on Godzilla did, which was, this Godzilla has attacked in the past, and that now he's just returning. And that's what I assumed with this, but little did I know upon opening up and reading it that they're actually doing his origin in this, and that this is the first time he's ever appeared. That's fine. I don't care. But at least... Alright. They changed the origin. I talked about this briefly in the Q&A, but now that I've read the entire issue and read it consecutively, I know for a fact that this is his distinct origin in this. It's a crappy origin. Because it's just too easy. He shows up looking like he usually does, looking like the usual Godzilla. That's why I assumed for the first time that he was just Godzilla already born, now just returning. But actually, this is his origin. This is the first time he's ever showed up. And what happens is that he starts attacking a small town. As just a regular dinosaur. No powers, just no powers. He just attacks this town like a normal dinosaur, and he's able to destroy it. And then, an airstrike is launched on him, and nothing works. Nothing's able to kill him. Typical situation. But the reason why he was always indestructible before this was because of the nuclear radiation. It seems too easy to me. And let me also get into the last part of his origin. The Japanese, the Prime Minister greenlights this without much thought and consideration. To launch a nuclear missile at Godzilla. Or at this creature that we're going to refer to as Godzilla later. At this creature. And that nuke gives him his atomic breath. I hate that. And here's why. I talked about this in the Q&A about how this changes the metaphor of the nuclear weapon, and about how messing with his origin kind of ruins that allegory. But it's not even that. I don't hate this because it changes his origin. I don't like this because it changes his characterization. One strong point of Godzilla's origin, this was always the case going back to 1991 with Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, where we actually saw his origin on screen, was that he has kind of a tragic backstory, Godzilla. He was this peaceful creature living on an island very peacefully, who actually went out of his way to save a bunch of soldiers who needed his help. But he was killed the first time by two factions warring. By the U.S. Navy launching the missiles, or having the naval strike on that island, and that killed him. But then launching the H-bomb brought him back to life and turned him into this monster who wanted revenge. That's a really tragic backstory. This ruins that. And again, I think it's too easy and contrived and just... For one thing, I don't buy that any government, for that matter the Japanese, would be that quick to launch a nuclear warhead at a monster. That wouldn't be the first place they would go, I think. I mean, this is a country that was devastated by atomic weapons. I don't think that they would be that quick to launch a nuclear missile at a dinosaur. I don't think that. I think it's too easy. Just as a plot, not even just as a Godzilla origin, just as a plot in general, I think that's too easy. And as a Godzilla origin, I think it's terrible, because I just don't think... I think that it's just there to give him the basic Godzilla powers of the atomic breath. That's the trademark thing. I don't understand why, if this guy... there's two writers for this, Eric Powell and Tracy Marsh. If they wanted to just have him have his atomic breath, they didn't need to do the origin. All they had to do was just have him show up. Just have him show up. If they're trying to get people who don't know Godzilla like we do to read this book, that's also fine. But you don't need to do the origin. You can just have him show up. And then later, there are scientists in this book who actually name him Godzilla. Later, you can just have them explain what happened. Or have people reference some other attack that happened in the past. Or even, I would even be okay with this. You wouldn't even necessarily have to have this not be the first time Godzilla appears. Have this be the first time Godzilla appears. And you can still have the 50s H-bomb origin. And just have him wake up now. Now, the only thing this would require on your part as a writer would be to explain why he's showing up now. Which could be the same explanation for why this Godzilla in the book that I'm talking about, why he's showing up now in this book without the nuclear radiation. Because then the nuke getting launched at him just seems to happen for no reason and isn't connected to the reason why he wakes up again. Excuse my cat over there in the background. I don't know why you couldn't just not have the nuke and just have him already have the atomic breath and just have that nuclear radiation stuff happen in the past where it belongs. And then just have whatever anomaly that they haven't explained yet in this book happen and wake him up now. Because it also wakes up two other monsters, two very other famous monsters. One plus for this book, I know I've been ranting about the origin. Guys, I'm just going to warn you now, this is going to be more than one part. Because I just have too much to say about this, even just these 4 issues. One plus with this book is that they got the rights to use other Toho monsters, and they talk about that on the back of the book. I really like that. I really like that they got the rights to use other Godzilla monsters, because the problem, with the Marvel run and the Dark Horse run of Godzilla was that they weren't able to use Toho monsters. They just got the rights to use Godzilla himself. Plus, about this book is that we get Anguirus, which I will show you if I can find him. Anguirus. And, of course, can't have Anguirus. If I can find him again. Darn. Oh, wait a minute. without Rodan. Now, Anguirus and Rodan don't really... Okay, well, I'll talk about Anguirus first, because he doesn't have an origin. He just shows up. Fine. I'm more happy with that than with Godzilla. Like that they just have Anguirus show up. And I really hope that they explain the anomaly later of why these monsters are showing up now and why they're showing up all together. But I guess I'll learn about that later when I get the other 4 issues. And yes, I'm going to continue reading this, even though I think it's awful. I'll get the next trade, and then I'll get the single... Whatever. I'll keep reading the series just to keep reviewing it. And here's the thing. Anguirus just shows up. And I like that. Now, do I know if there's nuclear radiation in his origin? I don't know. I don't think so, because with Godzilla, he just showed up looking like he does usually without the nuclear radiation. While Anguirus just, he shows up, he just shows up. So I'm assuming that he doesn't really get that kind of one-note origin of he was hit by an atomic weapon and now he looks like he does. I guess the assumption is that he's just that kind of dinosaur. With Rodan's a little confusing. Rodan hatches from an egg. Now, of course, that's what happens in the original Rodan movie, so I'm fine with that. But, I don't know, it feels weird that Rodan's hatching from an egg, yet these other two just show up and are already full size. I don't know. I feel like that's just there because that's the way it was in the movie. And I like that reference, I guess, but it just feels weird to me. But I like that he hatches from an egg. I mean, it's like the original Rodan movie. And it's a very similar scene. Except that he isn't just in the egg. It's weird. He's in some kind of crystal where the egg is contained within this crystal. And the crystal is inside a museum. And a kid, during an earthquake in Russia, I don't know, just go with it, Rodan's in Russia. I think that's a reference to, I guess it's a reference to Destroy All Monsters, where in that movie, Rodan attacked Moscow, which is, of course, in Russia. And he bursts out of the egg in this museum, but not in the museum, excuse me. What happens is this kid, during an earthquake, the case that this crystal is in shatters, and he takes the crystal home, and, of course, Rodan hatches out of the egg that's contained inside the crystal. No explanation for what the hell that crystal is, why it's there, and what it has to do with anything. But, whatever, I guess, hopefully they'll explain it later. Now that we're out of the monster's origins, now we come to another critique. Well, it's kind of a double whammy critique. The monsters don't get enough panel time and aren't the main focus. The main focus with this book is political and social satire. Why would you do that with Godzilla? And I know that the original Gojira and a lot of Godzilla films are political metaphor. But they were never in a million years supposed to be satire. The only Godzilla film I know of that was supposed to be satire and wasn't good at doing it was King Kong vs. Godzilla. And even then, fans were like, why would you do that with those monsters? That doesn't make any sense. Godzilla was always supposed to be a serious, realistic concept. Is it kind of outlandish? Yeah. But that doesn't mean we can't take it seriously. He's born out of a real-life fear, nuclear weapons. He attacks a city that was ravaged, or not a city, a country that was ravaged by nuclear weapons. That's kind of realistic, and we can take that seriously because it was filmed in a grim tone, and it was, it was grim, and it was filmed very realistically. I honestly think the only reason why this book is packed with so much political and social satire is because the guy might have known that about the original Gojira, that it was political metaphor, and took it too far. And thought that, oh, here's a movie that's all political. Maybe I can take that concept, turn it into a comic book, and then mess around with Republicans and make fun of Jersey Shore. It doesn't mesh well. Let me just say that. It doesn't mesh with Godzilla. Because here we have this very destructive creature who's slaughtering hundreds of people. And then we've got this goofy political satire going on that it doesn't mesh. And it's very distracting from the actual point of, or the actual reason I came to read this, because Godzilla's in it. It just doesn't mesh well.